Hi, today we're going to quickly go over what cortical visual impairment is. But first, let's watch a video to see what cortical visual impairment looks like.
You're seated at a table with a soda can in arm's reach. You know what a soda can looks like, but right now you don't really see anything but a swirling mass of color. Now imagine someone tells you, there's a soda can on the table. You look around but don't recognize anything, and at the same time getting tired from all this visual search. Then someone removes all the clutter on the table. They move the soda can a little bit or shine a light on it. And finally your brain is able to process this familiar item. Now stop imagining. For people with brain damage that causes blindness, the ability to recover vision in this way is actually possible. Right now though, brain-based blindness and the possibilities surrounding it are widely mistaken. You're seated.
So, cortical visual impairment is a visual impairment caused by damage to parts of the brain that are related to vision. So normally the eye structure is normal and the brain cannot properly process the information that it is receiving. The degree of vision loss may be mild or severe and can vary greatly, even from day to day. It's also known as cerebral visual impairment. CVI may be temporary or permanent. People with cortical visual impairment have difficulty using what their eyes see. For example, they have trouble recognizing faces, interpreting drawings, perceiving depth, or distinguishing between background and foreground. Children with cortical visual impairment are often able to see better when told in advance what they should be looking for. It's also important to know that cortical visual impairment does go by many different names, and one of them is also known as neurological visual impairment, or NVI. So if you see NVI, it's the same thing as CVI. Now, there are 10 characteristics of CVI. Now, the first is color. There tends to be a preference for a specific color for students who have cortical visual impairment. There also is a need for movement, difficulties with visual complexity, so they tend to prefer items of one color or two colors, depending on the degree of visual loss. There's also light gazing, which includes non-purposeful gazing. Distance viewing, the students may have difficulties with viewing items at a distance. There tends to be a preference for familiar objects, such as a childhood toy, such as an Elmo or a bus. Latency, which is a delayed response when looking at objects. There tends to be a preference for certain visual fields, and there also tends to be an inability to see on their lower parts of their visual field, so anything having to look down. Visual motor, there's usually some sort of impaired visually guided reach, so if there is an item that they need to reach out for, like if they are choosing between two items, they may have difficulty with being able to have their hand pick up that item. And also visual reflexes tend to be atypical, absent, or impaired. So what does this mean for you in your classroom? This means that students with cortical visual impairments have a visual impairment, and there are some very specific student-based strategies to utilize with the students, and a lot of them tend to be based on their color preference and need for light. So here we have an example of a student working on a classroom task. They have a black background to help them better focus on the items that they need to have their visual attention focused on. And as you can see, their preferred color is red. So the student is focusing on those objects. There are some things that we need to take into consideration for students who have cortical visual impairment. We need to ensure that we are including their favorite colors for their chosen materials. That way they're able to better visually fixate on the materials that you want them to. There's also, we need to ensure that we have proper lighting. Students tend to do a little bit better when there is a flashlight included that is pointed at the objects that they need to be visually fixated on. We need to look at how close and where we need to place the objects for the students. We need to see if there needs to be any movement or reflective properties added to the materials that we will be presented. But all of this can be consulted with our VI, and we will come up with a plan specific for our students. If you have any questions related to CVI or any other eye condition, please send me a Teams message or an email. Once again, thank you so much for watching and have a great day.